So this training is titled 22 Common Sense Tips to Improve Your Classroom. And we put a lot of time, energy, and thought on safety and supervision practices in the classroom. However, many of the challenges we face in the classroom could be due to some common everyday decisions that most of us don't think about. So we're going to go over 22 items that we all need to review and think about. I think this is a really cool list right here. And could these simple items be the solution to a lot of your classroom stress? I encourage each of you to incorporate at least 5 items that we talk about today to help enhance your classroom, enhance your school. If you're a director, if you're an administrator that is participating in this training, share this information with your teachers and kind of reflect on each individual person in your program, what their individual needs are, and how this can be beneficial to them. As always, before we get started with our training, we need to go over just a couple of training tips to help you be successful in your program. This training has been approved by TechPEDS, the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, and we do have a TechPEDS training ID for this course. Make sure that your personal TechPEDS Workforce ID number is entered on your Tim the Trainer portal before you complete your assessment at the end of the webinar. That way your training certificate will be uploaded into your TechPEDS account and verified. As always, we are here to answer any questions that you have about today's training. If you need additional information beyond the scope of the training material, or if you need additional resources, you can go to our website, timthetrainer.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can send us a direct message. You can call, you can email, whatever works best for you, and we can get that answer, those additional resources, that additional information in a timely manner. We always want to make sure that you're in compliance with childcare regulations and that you don't have any hiccups with your compliance history. Per the childcare minimum standards, trainings must be completed in a reasonable amount of time. Basically, that means that you should not be completing more clock hours of training in a single day than the total number of hours that you worked in that particular day. Definitely, you should not be completing more clock hours of training in a single day than there are waking hours in a day. If you do this, childcare regulations and Texas Rising Star most likely will not accept those certificates because they are not realistic and reasonable. Also, we are doing this training today live right here on Facebook. So those of you that are participating in the live course, make sure that you submit your assessment today. That way, live and instructor-led will show up on your training certificate. If you're watching the recording of this training, then that is not live, all right? But the biggest thing is to make sure you submit your assessment today for those of you that are participating live right here. We are here to answer questions. We are here to give you additional information beyond the scope of the training material. We are here to give you additional resources, and we do respond in a timely manner. However, we do want you to refer to the child care minimum standards, your local licensing inspector, and your local Texas Rising Star mentor for their interpretation of the definition of instructor-led training. All right, so our objectives for today is we basically want to identify and apply practical strategies that enhance classroom organization, student engagement, and daily routines. We'll talk about some really good tips that I think are going to help you out with this. Demonstrate techniques for improving classroom behavior management using simple, proven tips. And this training is called Common Sense Tips. Sometimes we tend to want to overthink things, and sometimes the answer is right in front of us, right? And then lastly, evaluate current classroom practices and implement at least 3 new tips to support a more positive and productive learning environment. So what are you going to get out of this? The benefit to the participant is we want participants to leave with easy to implement practical tips that can immediately improve classroom management, boost student engagement, and create a more organized, positive learning environment without requiring major changes and additional resources. So that is our goal with this training today. All right, so, what is common sense right here? And, we talk a lot about, you can't train common sense. You can't motivate common sense. Common sense is one of those things that it just has to be there. However, in this day of social media, in this world of algorithms, your phone is going to show you what you want to see rather than what you need to see. We tend to let a lot of information get in our head, and a lot of information and experiences just get in the way of us being able to see what is right in front of us, things that it's like, we know this, right? I mean, how many of y'all have been in a training, or you've read a book, or you've seen something and you're like, duh, I know this, right? The answer is right in front of us. So, that's what this is kind of about right here. It's like clearing out the muddy water and just having a different perspective on classroom management. So, common sense is the ability to make sound, practical decisions and judgment based on simple perception of a situation or facts. Okay? Always make sure you got those facts right there. It's the basic level of reasoning and understanding that most people are expected to have and use in everyday situations. I like to use the terminology, give it a kiss, right? KISS. Keep it simple, silly. All right, I changed the last word just because we want to be positive right there. But, keep it simple. We just tend to want to make things so complicated, and sometimes they just don't have to be complicated. So, really cool stuff that we're going to go over. Let's get into it. All right, so I accidentally skipped one right here, so I got to go back on that one. So, first off, waking children up while they are in their REM cycle, So the humans sleep in 5 different stages or 5 different cycles. Waking up in the middle of a REM stage, which is when you sleep the deepest, leaves you groggy and grumpy. But if you get up during one of your light sleep stages, you will rise feeling refreshed and alert. Okay, so this is true for both children and adults. Work with families using websites such as sleepyti.me. Get it? It's sleepy time, but sleepyti.me to help discover the child's sleeping patterns. You will also need to be aware of your own sleeping cycles. Being fresh and alert is important for all early education professionals. All right. I know that we've got a lot of different devices these days, like our smartwatches, our rings. A lot of you have the smart rings right there that you can use to help you determine your sleep cycles when you're in that REM, which is when you don't need to be woken up. And it's going to be different for everybody. I know that I monitor my sleep cycle with my smart ring, and I usually go into my deepest sleep, my REM cycle, shortly after I fall asleep at the beginning of the night, and I will usually have my deepest sleep at that time. then I start waking up and my brain starts going and all of that stuff. But again, it could be different for everybody. But no one likes to be woken up during that cycle. Then, we go to the slide that's right here on the screen. Give the brain a treat, all right? Does listening to music give you chills? That's your brain rewarding itself with dopamine, the same way it reacts to eating sweets and falling in love. So play music in the classroom as often as you can and encourage the children to sing along. The deep breathing associated with singing has been shown to improve heart health, right? Now make sure that you've got age-appropriate music that you're playing in the classroom. Make sure that you preview the music first, right? But, sing those songs. I could do an entire 2-hour training, just the benefit of singing and having music in the classroom. It's good stuff. Then we kind of go on to dress for success. How many of you, whenever you dress nice, you just feel good, all right? When you dress nice and professional, it makes you look and feel more competent. The way you dress and the way you look really does make a difference in your quality of work, all right? So, dress for the role that you want to have. That's what I always like to tell emerging leaders right here. Dress for the role that you want to have. Definitely dress for the part that you do have right here. Whenever I do director trainings, I always kind of talk about the director should always stand out. I should be able to walk into a center that I have never visited before with people that I don't know, and I should be able to line everybody up against a wall and say, that's the director right there. All right? Because that person should stand out. But not just the director, it could also be the proud early educators that we have in our programs. That kind of leads me to this one right here. Stand out as an original. While coming to work in dress code is part of the job, and I'm sure a lot of you have dress codes that are outlined in your personnel policies, studies have shown that adding an offbeat element, such as red tennis shoes, to the traditional dress code can make you look more competent because it makes you seem unique, right? And there are so many different ways that we can stand out as an original but still be professional and proud early educators. And I love this too, especially in the early education industry, because we want to reach the children. We want to find things that we have in common with them. And standing out as an original is a great way of finding what you have in common with the children. And if you do have something in common with the children, and that could be your unique piece that you wear outside of your original dress code, the meaningful connections that you're going to make with the kids is going to be amazing. And then I love this one right too. Express yourself with your favorites. Wearing your most beloved clothing could improve your own mood, according to a UK study. Children who are struggling with self-identity or self-esteem issues should be encouraged to wear their favorite shirts or objects that are important to them. I know that this is so true for myself right here, especially whenever I'm going into a social setting that I don't feel comfortable in. If I can wear something that expresses my personality and my characteristics, I am more confident in myself and my self-esteem goes up. And I'm able to kind of push through those difficult and awkward social settings when there can be just a little part of me that can just be myself, be myself. And I've got a picture right here on the screen of our Proud Early Educator t-shirts that is available for sale on our website, timthetrainer.com. We have Proud Early Educator t-shirts and jackets that you can order, and we can ship them to you. But if you're a proud early educator and you're passionate about the job that we do, the purpose that we live every single day, express yourself. We've had these Proud Early Educator t-shirts for about 8 years now, and they are still our most popular selling item when it comes to early education gear that we offer. But the response that I get from schools all over the country is the response that they get from the parents and the community. Whenever every teacher in the building has on a Proud Early Educator shirt, it gets people's attention and it starts a conversation. Tell us more about that t-shirt. We are early educators, all right? We are not daycare workers. We are not childcare workers. We are early educators. We have to be seen different before we will be treated differently. And this is going to start the conversation right here. So I love it. I love it. We do bulk orders. So, if you're wanting to do a bulk order, give us a call in the office and we can talk to you about that. Now, this is one of those common sense items. We talk about this all the time. We all know this, but then we still keep doing it. All right? Put away the junk food, both at school and at home. Right now, we are regulated by childcare regulations. Those of you that are on the food program, we are regulated on the food and the nutrition that we serve our children, but not the teachers, right? So, you are what you eat and you eat what you see. According to a study in Health, Education, and Behavior magazine, people who keep foods such as cereal, cookies, and muffins in plain sight tend to weigh more than those whose treats stay tucked away. All right. On the other hand, keeping healthy foods visible correlates to slimness. All right. Keep this in mind when enriching your dramatic play and science centers as well. All right. But you're going to eat what you see, okay? And once again, whenever I was putting this training together, I was like, man, that is so true for me, right? So true for me as well. If the wine bottle is sitting out and I can see the wine bottle, I'm probably going to pour me a glass of wine, even when I don't need it. If I keep it tucked away, I'll drink my water and do the water thing. A Harvard University of more than 2,000 volunteers found that when our minds wander, we are more likely to become unhappy than when we are focused. This makes engagement in the classroom even more important than ever. All right? Keep your children and yourself focused on the task at hand. All right? We like to call this know when you're in the weeds. All right? So a little activity that I do in a lot of my trainings right here is, we say things like we are conscious enough to know our expectations. We are conscious enough to know our goals, right? So our goal is to keep children safe and healthy and to supervise the children engage in learning, right? We know that's our goal. We know that's our expectation. But then our mind starts to wander and we get off into the weeds. And then we start thinking about what are we going to do this weekend? The economy, prices, all of these, humanly problems that we have on a daily basis. And we're over here trying to supervise and educate the children from the weeds, right? but then we need to be aware enough to know when we are in the weeds and bring it back in. All right? Because you're going to go to the weeds. Your mind is going to wander. But are you conscious enough to be aware of when you're in the weeds and then willing enough to bring it back in whenever you find yourself there? Okay? And y'all, this is something that we have to model to the children, and we have to practice this with the children, okay? Because they are no different than us. Their mind is going to wander just like our mind wanders, but that willingness to bring it back in and focus is internal, all right? So we can model this and talk about it with the children and practice some of those skills for sure. A volume of recent research shows that reading fiction not only engages our fickle brains, but it also increases empathy, fostering a deep understanding of new experiences and new views. All right? Reading stories to children multiple times a day will help keep the children in their executive state and help them avoid the lower parts of our brain, which are the survival states. All right. Now, I mentioned earlier in the webinar with social media, with algorithms, we tend to see what we want to see. We tend to see what our interests are. We tend to see what our circle that we surround ourselves with, talk about often. We've got to look outside of the box. We've got to be open to alternative opinions about life and situations. So, reading fiction has kind of become a lost treasure, okay? Go out, find a book that sparks your interest, something that doesn't have anything to do with work, doesn't have anything to do with life, all right? Just some fun, fantasy, fictional stories right there. I like humor, all right? So if I'm going to read a book, I want to laugh, all right? Those type of things. But it helps us with compassion, with caring, okay? To be empathetic, all right? And again, it's those alternative opinions that are really important for us to have. Otherwise, we're just going to keep looking down the tunnel and see what we want to see. Anytime y'all see me out and about, you can challenge me on this. I usually have at least 2 books in my backpack at all times, sometimes 3, depending on what's going on in my life at the time. I will have some type of book about brain research or science or leadership skills, something related to work. I always have one of those. I will always have some type of fictional book that has nothing to do with work or life. And then I'll usually have some type of inspirational book or spiritual book, again, in my backpack. And depending on my mood, depending on my situation, depending on where I'm at, depends on what book comes out of my backpack and I read. I just like a variety of life right there, okay? But again, it's really, really cool how this helps you with that alternative opinion. Voltaire was probably speaking in metaphor when he said that each of us should tend to our own garden, but a slew of research shows that workers with actual flowers or foliage are more productive than those without. One study even found that people surrounded by plants perform better on tasks involving memory and attention. All right? So enrich your classroom with real life plants, all right? If you're nationally accredited, if you're going through a certification like Texas Rising Star, a lot of these certifications and accreditations require some type of real life object in the classroom. And that's, check, we're meeting a box right there. But there are a lot of incredible benefits to having these plants in the classroom. Now, make sure you're reviewing those allergy alerts. Make sure that you don't have any toxic plants or flowers in your classroom. So make sure you're looking at the little stick thingy that's in there. Make sure that it's not toxic. But enrich that classroom, all right? Again, whenever I was putting this training together and I was pulling this research, I started thinking about some of the most fascinating classrooms that I have been in and some of the most successful classrooms that I have been in. And the more I thought about it, I was like, yep, there were real life plants in that classroom. I think this one teacher had like a garden in there, right? So it really does make some good progress for you. According to research from the University of Illinois, increasing your daily water consumption by just 1 cup could reduce your total daily calorie intake, as well as your consumption of saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. Okay, so not only should the adults in the classroom be drinking lots of water, but encourage your children to drink water as often as possible throughout the day. Encourage more and more water consumption. Now, here in Texas, for those of us that are located here in Texas, this is in the child care minimum standards that we do need to serve water with meals and snack time and after outdoor play. But don't just limit water consumption to, those particular moments. Have that water available and encourage children to drink water. All right? And then this is going to encourage you to also get that water consumption right there. Any doodlers out there? I love doodling. I know a lot of people that could literally publish their notes from trainings with their doodles. Y'all know who you are right there. Doodlers may look as if they are tuned out, but chances are they are retaining even more information than active listeners. In one study in applied cognitive psychology, subjects who monitor a random phone message for names and party guests recall 29% more information later if they had been doodling during the call. All right. Meanwhile, among science students who were asked to draw what they had learned during a lecture and reading, doodlers not only retained more information, but also reported more enjoyment and engagement with the material. Often, early educators discourage this type of behavior, telling children to pay attention. However, these doodlers are only doing what their brains need to retain information. All right? So encourage more doodling activities in the classroom. Now, let's apply some common sense right here. Okay? Older infant, toddler, 2-year-olds, even in our 3s and 4s, but mainly in the younger classrooms, this is scribbling. All right? Scribbling with a crayon or a marker, just random scribbling. Y'all, that's wiring the brain for information to be retained, all right? And it's going to encourage this type of behavior. So don't get discouraged. We want to encourage more doodling activities in the classroom. Finger painting, which is also sensory development, that's going to be beneficial as well. Take your breaks away from the classroom and the center environment. This is such a big one right here. If you're taking notes or if you're taking pictures of this presentation, take this one right here. Get outside. All right, definitely get away from your classroom if you can step away from the center. That's what your brain and your body needs. All right, a study at Northwestern University found that people who get the majority of their daily sunlight before noon have lower BMIs than those who catch some rays later in the day. Now, we've got winter approaching. You know, whenever we're recording this video right now, we've got winter coming up. You know, whatever season it might be whenever you're watching this video. Adjust your outside time to give children and yourself more opportunities to play outside in the mornings and reduce the amount of time spent outside in the afternoon. All right. Now, we do have regulations on the amount of time that children must spend outside each day when weather permits. All right. But y'all, there is nothing that says you have to divide this up equally. All right. 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. Okay. Depending on your climate, depending on the time of the year, it might be 45 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, as long as it equals up to the 60 minutes. But based on this research from Northwestern University, the more time that we spend outside in the mornings, the better it's going to be for the body. So I found that one to be very interesting and share-worthy as well. I did a training, it's been 10 or 15 years ago. I did a training on stress reduction strategies, and I was looking at some research about animals that reduce the most amount of stress in humans, all right? And I had found some research with like the top 5 animals that reduce stress, all right? Horses was number 1. Horses was number 1, being around a horse. Dogs were number 2, right? But for our early education classroom, let's just look at cute animals right here. Looking at something cute releases oxytocin, and oxytocin reduces stress. One study at Hiroshima University in Japan found that people who look at a picture with baby animals before completing a task perform better than those who observe photos of adult animals or neutral objects. All right? So, you know, add a lot of real life pictures of just cute baby animals to your program. Now, remember the golden rule with adding real life photographs to your classroom. The younger the child, the bigger the picture. So they've got to be able to visually focus on that right there. But it's not just good for the children to release that oxytocin. It's also good for us. All right? So kind of keep that in mind right there too. Did you know that the average head weighs 10 to 12 pounds? But when you let it hang down, you know, to look at a phone or a tablet, it's the same as putting 60 pounds of stress weight on your neck. This all comes from a study in Surgical Technology International. So, you know, we've got a whole training on our website about overexposure to screen time, and we've got some good research in there about overexposure to screen time. So I thought I would just add this in here for just another reason to avoid screen time. All right. I know that I have found this to be true for myself as well. Whether I'm reading a book, I'm on my phone or my tablet. I'm a big nerd. I like to put together Lego sets. That is my stress reduction strategy, is to put together big old ginormous Lego sets. But when I have my head down, you know, like this, I feel it in my neck, right? So whenever I found this data about 60 pounds of stress weight on your neck, right? That's a lot, y'all. That's absolutely a lot. So add that to other reasons to avoid screen time. According to a study published in Psychological Science, people tasked with finding solutions on a full bladder tend to make better decisions thanks to what researchers call increased impulse control in behavioral domain. All right? So, take that potty break. Don't take that potty break unless you absolutely need it. Now, I added this into this training because, this is one of the long-time jokes and sarcasm that we have in early education. We don't get to go to the bathroom very often, and sometimes we have to hold it for hours until that relief comes. But hey, let's pivot to the positive. All right, pivot to the positive. Having that full bladder helps you make better decisions. Good judgment. All right. So, hey, anything we can do to help us with good judgment, to help us with better decisions, it's going to be beneficial to the classroom. A lot of you are using tablets or touchscreen devices for parents to sign in and out on, for attendance tracking, for meal production and meal count sheets, for anecdotal records, for assessments and observations. The list just goes on and on. For those of you that are using touchscreen check-in systems or tablets for daily reports, studies have found that these screens house nasty bacteria, including fecal matter. Oh, gross. So clean those items with proper disinfectant designated for electronic devices. Keep those things cleaned, and you're probably going to want to do this several times a day depending on the number of people that touch and handle those screens. All right? But gross, just think about that. Every time you're tapping on that screen, you're touching someone else's poop, right? Their fecal matter. So that should encourage you to clean those screens right there. Be sure to check out our website, timthetrainer.com. When you go to our sponsors, we have Greg, the chemical guy from Share Corporation. He is one of our long-term sponsors that we are so grateful for. Greg and Share Corporation has a disinfectant that is made specifically for electronic devices that is perfect for sanitizing and disinfecting these tablets and screens and those type of things. So check that out. Give Greg a call. He can hook you up with that. Here's something else when we talk about reducing illnesses in the classroom. A random study shows that 75% of sponges and rags have bacteria such as salmonella growing on them. All right? So I know that it's going to add to your operating costs, but use disposable towels, use disposable gloves whenever you can. But those sponges and those rags can house a lot of nasty stuff that we want to keep away from the classroom. So, letting a past physical movement activity enter your head actually can motivate you to get up and move more. Found by a university in New Hampshire, some researchers there. Even participants who thought of a negative physical movement memory still performed better on activities than those that didn't think of anything. All right? So reflect on physical movement, even the bad experiences. Have those random 5-minute dance parties during the day right there. Encourage that music and movement in the classroom. This is going to benefit not only yourself, but the children that you have. All right. Now, being a proud early educator, we've got to be mobile. We got to be moving, and that's what we're going for right here. I was just thinking on my drive in today, we have our daily tips of the day that we post on social media, from leadership tips to classroom tips to conscious discipline tips, life is good tips, my golden rules. We have all of that stuff. And I was thinking on my way to work and preparing for this webinar today, I was like, I think I'm going to start posting just some random 5-minute dance parties with some music to kind of help us enhance that physical movement right there. And just don't care about what people think about you. If they think that you are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, then, that's on them. It's not on you. All right? But just get up and dance. With that being said, people that exercise with a partner exercise more than people that do it alone. So if you do not have a physical fitness partner, let the children be your support. All right? Plus, they will benefit with the daily routine of physical movement. All right? Now, once again, here in the state of Texas, we do have active play requirements. We need to have moderate to vigorous active play every single day. That is in the minimum standards right there. But you should be involved in that physical movement, and you've got 17 partners right there in the classroom with you. That's pretty awesome. When Cornell University scientists altered half of fast food restaurants to include low lighting and atmospheric music, customers in the modified sections not only ate slower, but they also consumed fewer calories, and reporting that their food was more nutritious and more enjoyable. All right? Customers that ate the identical meals in standard dining rooms said the opposite. All right? So while maintaining appropriate classroom supervision, lowering the lights and playing soft music during meal times can be beneficial for both you and the children. Make mealtime one of the most relaxed and memorable parts of your day. All right? Now, I've done trainings in the past about the difference between the male brain and the female brain. I think that's always a fascinating training right there. The female brain tends to prefer lower lights than the male brain. So you can kind of keep that in mind as well. Ask yourself this question: can a padded chair help cushion your verbal blows? According to a study from MIT, Harvard, and Yale, sitting on a soft surface actually makes people more flexible and accommodating. All right? This is why Bruce Feiler, the author of Secrets of a Happy Family, suggests moving heated conversations to a soft or cushioned seat. This not only is a great tip for active calming in the classroom, but it's also a great idea for the directors. Have soft areas to sit on while having difficult conversations with parents and employees. Add soft surfacing to your classroom for active calming. Sometimes those classroom chairs and the furniture that we buy for our classrooms, it's not comfortable, all right? Not comfortable, and definitely is going to have a hard time calming in those types of situations. I love this one right here, and even though, the research that I pulled on this one was specific about women, I think that it's true for everybody, whether it be male or female. But the study that I found said that women who get out to attend religious services or meditate, depending on your beliefs and convictions, at least once a week have a 20% reduced risk of death regardless of whether they smoke, drink, or exercise. And this came from a study of more than 92,000 women in Yeshiva University and Albert Einstein College of Medicine. All right. Research credit the emotional support and respite from stress that go on during regular services and medication that is provided. Okay. So teach your children how to give their brain a break, clear their thoughts, and practice gratitude. This meditation will help them be better students, reduce aggression, and increase empathy in the classroom. So worship or meditate, depending on your beliefs and convictions, has a huge impact on classroom management, and it has a huge impact on your ability to stay composed. All right. Now, I have a video on my website, timthetrainer.com, on practicing gratitude in the classroom. It's a little bit of an older video. It's actually on my list to update in the very near future. But, start doing this where you're practicing gratitude with the children, but just getting them to clear their mind and breathe. Wonderful stuff right here. And, last but not least, I just had to throw this in here. Do what you love and love what you do. People don't get burned out because of the job that they do. They get burned out when they forget why they do it. So always have that constant reminder of your why. Why do you work in early education? Why do you work with young children? Why do you work in a leadership position? Whatever role that you play, all right? Have that constant reminder of your why, okay? Love what you do and do what you love, okay? Love that one. All right, so that's our 22 common sense tips to enhance your classroom environment. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I think it was a lot of fun. Again, all of this stuff that is right in front of us, but we just seem to overcomplicate it from time to time. All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and post the link for those of you that are participating live today. We'll post the link for you to complete your assessment if you are needing a certificate of completion for today's live training. There is a $5 fee for the certificate of completion. If you are watching the recorded video, then you'll just do the assessment on the website that is right below the training. And you can get that kind of the same way right there. All right.